All right, we're on. Hey everyone. All right, quick word from the sponsor. You got FIFO by Aaron Weston, a hilarious novel about all the dodgy stuff that happens up in the FIFO industry. So if you want all the goss, grab yourself a copy at Aaron Weston author Instagram account or Facebook page. Just click on the link or the shop now button. For the kids, under the children's books by Aaron White on Facebook, just click on the shop now button. You have Australian mining machines colouring in book, Australian firefighters, Australian paramedics, Australian police vehicles, Australian surf lifesavers, Australian Defence Force machines. Yeah, and if you like what you're listening to or you like the video on YouTube, just like and subscribe and that'd be awesome. All right, cool. Get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to the Aaron White Show. We have a fantastic guest, Jessica Pinili. Jessica is a empowerment coach and has her very own podcast, the Jessica Pinili Pod. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Hey, today I just want to hear your story, how and where you grew up, any life-changing events, and how you end up doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Perth. I was living up until I was about 9, 10. I was living up north of Western Australia. And then we moved to Perth, me and my family. So I basically feel like I have been in Perth most of my life, for what I can remember at least. And went to high school, I went to uni. And then when I went to uni, just before I went to uni, my mum passed away. And that was when I was 18. So that became a very pivotal, and it still is a very pivotal moment in my life where everything kind of started to change, my outlook on life, what I wanted to do, how I understood how the world works. And I think for a long time after that happened, from about 18 to 21 to 23, I guess I just felt super sorry for myself. And so in going from a teenager to turning into an adult, working out what I wanted to do, I guess I was kind of in a limbo, because I felt like this primary caregiver of mine, who had, at the time I was like, she's been taken away from me, played into this victim mentality. I really struggled to find my place. And so I finished I finished high school, went into uni, and I was studying a business degree. And as I was studying the business degree, about halfway through, so that's about 4 years, halfway through, I fell in love with going to the gym. I fell in love with the fitness industry and wellness and health and everything to do with that. And I was really conflicted, because internally, I was like, the right thing to do is to finish off my business degree, I've gone to uni, get a 9 to 5 job. And at this point, like, I'd been conditioned, I guess, by society, by my high school, that the right thing to do was get a 9 to 5 job. And so I was super conflicted, and I thought, how can I actually make this work, where I have such a passion and love for fitness and health, but have that as part of my life, but finish this uni degree. So I ended up finishing my degree, but in the last 6 months, I also smashed out my certs in fitness. And then I graduated uni, and I was just doing hospo jobs. And I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Do I go into the 9 to 5, just give it a shot and then see how I go? But I knew inside of me that it just was not the right thing. And I know for a fact that my mum wouldn't have wanted me to just do something for the sake of doing it. And so I always had that in the back of my mind. So I finished my certs in fitness, was working hospo jobs, and I decided just to do PT on the side, like mobile PT. And I started doing that, and I loved it. And I was like, I've made the right choice. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to be a personal trainer or a group fitness instructor or a gym manager, but I'm going to make this work, because I know that I do not want to go sit at a desk. Like, that's just not me. It just did not feel like me. And so as I was working my hospo jobs, also doing mobile PT on the side, I got my very first group fitness job. And it was actually one of the first F45s that opened up in Perth. And I did that for a couple of years, and I absolutely loved it. Slowly transitioned into going to another gym and just solely doing personal training. And at the time, as I was doing this, and I was about 23, 24, 25, over these years, I started to really get into personal development. And before this, like, I'd always loved reading books and learning new things, but I just started reading a lot more. I started looking up a lot of different things on YouTube, all of that type of stuff. And I remember predominantly my client base for PT were females. And I started to share little tips and tricks with all these females of what I was doing outside of the gym, because I came to this awareness that there is so much more to health than just physical health. And so I had this awareness and I wanted to share that with my clients as well. And so I started to share all these little things like my journaling prompts, or like if I was meditating, what I would use to meditate sound wise. And I just started to really enjoy that. And it started to drag out that after the PT session with my clients, I would be spending up to 30 minutes in between clients just speaking about personal development, giving tips, and sharing the other stuff that I was passionate about. And so I remember when I hit, I think it was about 24 now, I got asked to speak at an event, a female only event. And it was with a couple of other women from Perth. And they just said, we want you to speak as a personal trainer, like how you see wellness, how you see health, all of that. And this event had just over 100 women. And I remember getting up on stage and I spoke about the importance of, yes, physical health, but there's so much more mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And I shared that and I spoke up on stage, and I just remember feeling so lit up inside. I felt so inspired. I felt like speaking to all these women and sharing this different type of message of health and wellness was just so important to me. And I remember going home from that event and exhausting a journal of all the things I wanted to create. And in this journal was start a podcast, have a membership base, coach one-on-one clients on the type of stuff that I'm sharing with my PT clients. But the problem was I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. I'd always kind of fantasized about having my own business. And I guess being a personal trainer, I did, but I think more in a sense, literally not having a boss. Like I am the boss. And obviously when you're a personal trainer, you still have to give everything to a gym manager or, talk to someone like that. And so I had all these ideas and all these things that I wanted to do, I wanted to share. And I remember just spending the rest of the evening, I stayed up so late and I was like, how am I going to make this work? Like, is this even a thing? What am I going to do? But what kept me stuck for about a year and a half was the fact that I've had fear around what people would say. I had fear around failing. I even had fear around succeeding because, we don't often talk about fear of succeeding, but when we are so used to a certain place in our life, it's the comfort zone, right? So even though you may think, oh, I really want this thing over here, that is still the unknown. That is still something scary. And that took me a long time to realize that I actually feared success. And now hindsight is a beautiful thing because I look back and I'm like, yes, I know that I had a fear of that. And so I kept doing what I was doing, PTing. I eventually moved to managing a gym. And I moved where I was. I moved to the city. I was in a beautiful apartment, managing gym, had flexible hours, good money coming in, good friendship group, great relationships. Everything on paper you'd look at and you would think, she has such a great life. And there was just something inside of me. I felt so unhappy. I felt so unhappy with myself. I had a very flexible working job with full-time pay, great apartment, as I said, great friends. And I still just felt this unhappiness. And so when I was in this apartment, I remember I bought a microphone and I was like, I'm going to start my podcast. Bought a microphone. It sat in my cupboard for 6 months. And I wasn't even scared about what strangers would say on the internet. It was more what my friends and family would say. Because when I first released a podcast, well, back then it was like nearly 4 years ago now, it wasn't a huge thing. People who had podcasts back then were more celebrity. And so for me, it was like a huge thing. Like, wow, like I'm this outlier. Not many people have podcasts. Like where do I even start? And I remember it was, about 5-6 months, I just kept this microphone in the cupboard. And then I think one day I had a really, really bad day at work. And I was just like, I need to make a change. I keep having all these ideas. I keep wanting to be my own boss. I keep wanting to bring something to women that is different. And I keep making these excuses. And at the time I was posting stuff on my stories. I was showing up on my stories, all of that type of stuff, but it just was not enough for me. And so I started my podcast, and I remember recording it, my first episode, and I was so nervous to make a mistake or to say or anything like that. And I remember recording the first episode, I uploaded it to the server and I didn't say anything to anyone. I just like kept quiet. I kept it myself, uploaded it. And I think it was a few days later, someone messaged me on my Instagram, a random girl, and she's like, "Hey, Jazz, I didn't know you had a podcast. I came across it on iTunes." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I just released it." She's like, "It's so amazing. Like, are you doing weekly episodes? Like, what are you doing?" And I think that little push, I've never forgotten that message. And I think that little push was like, oh, okay, there's people who are listening, there's people who are going to appreciate. So then I started doing weekly podcast episodes, and it was really another platform where I could get out my message and share with women what I was learning and all the things that were helping me, whether it would be with my mental health or, you know, my overall well-being. And then fast forward a few months, I was still in this job, and I was still feeling miserable. And even though life wasn't bad per se, I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't fulfilled whatsoever. And so I remember I got a message on Instagram from a gym that I had networked with in Bali. So I'd been to Bali a bunch of times on holidays. And this gym messaged me, and this was 2019. And they said, our head trainer is actually going home for 4 weeks. We'd love to bring on a guest trainer. We know you live in Perth, super close to Bali. Would you like to come? And one of my bucket list things as a PT had always been to go coach in another country. And so I was like, wow, like I had thought about this. I'd never really put it in motion, and it's getting handed to me. You know, I manifested that. So I thought, of course, like I'm going to go give that. There'll be something new, it'll be something refreshing for me. So I remember I packed my bags, and I knew I had about 2 to 4 weeks that I would go. And I think with my job, I was like, the most I could probably take off is 2 weeks. So I remember going and got to Bali, and the next day was the first day that I did coaching, and I just fell in love with a different environment. I started to network. I met loads of different people in the first week, and then it got to the second week, and I was like, I haven't felt this happy in so long. And I was also around all these nomads, all these entrepreneurs, you know, different types of coaches, people with e-commerce brands, traders, just everyone who could work from their laptop. And I was like, wow, I was envious, because I was like, I have had in my mind for so long that I want to do something with whatever I'm learning, all this personal development, with my podcast, with everything, with women, but I just didn't know what to do. And I was like, okay, this is kind of possible. And I remember quitting my job, extending my trip for the 2-month visa. And I started to show up a lot more on my stories, and I started to develop my first coaching program on confidence for women and mindsets for women. And I remember getting my first clients, and I just felt, I can't even explain how I felt. It was so overwhelming, because I'm like, wow, I had all this momentum, as you do when you first start a business. You have so much momentum because you are so in the zone, like anything's possible, right? And so I was go, 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 got my first clients, and it came to the end of my 2-month visa. And I flew back home, and the whole time on the plane ride, I was like, I can't go back to working for someone else. I barely had any savings at this point, and I was like, I know that what I'm giving to people and what I was doing in Bali, I want to make this work. I need to make this work full time. And to me, the driving factor wasn't, I want this, like this would be great. It'd be so good to work for my lifestyle. The driving factor was like, there right now that I've had a taste of this entrepreneurship, there's no other way. There's no other way to live my life. Like this is what I want. And I remember landing in Perth. My friend picked me up. We went to lunch, and in that lunchtime, I booked another ticket to Bali for a week later. And I was like, I've just got to make it work. I barely have savings. I don't know. I have a plan. I don't have a business plan. I don't know the logistics, like, you know, because for the 2 months, I just had been on momentum. And so I moved out of where I was living, put all my stuff back into my dad's house, and packed my bags, and away I went to Bali. And kind of like what I do now, being a female empowerment coach. And I created, in the space of being in Bali, and then I came back to Perth because of COVID, I have created my program, my one-on-one mentorship for women, for busy women when it comes to lifestyles and relationship with self. I created my membership platform, Woman Up Monthly. I, started releasing regularly my podcast episodes on the Jessica Pinili podcast. And I really just fell into this whole world of having this sense of fulfillment. And I actually had this talk with a friend the other day. Sometimes I often forget to, and now I've been in business just over a year, but I was having this conversation where I often forget to have so much gratitude for where I am right now, because this is exactly what I was envisioning. And that moment I had that talk with all the females, and I came home in a journal, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do all this. Like everything that I wrote down in that journal has come into fruition right now, has been created. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. And that's kind of what has led me to this path and what I'm doing right now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to jump forward quite a few questions to hit on what the last point you just said. Well, I want to know what's in the future for you. I normally leave that towards the end, but I want to hit that and then we'll come back to other stuff. So what have you've hit everything that you kind of put down some years ago. What are you putting down today? Like, what are you wanting to do 4 or 5 years from now?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my next step is really scaling my business, taking on more private clients, more one-on-one clients, but definitely growing my membership as well, and having a base, because I think at the start when I started it, I didn't really know anyone who had a membership base in the sense of what I was wanting to do, and having a safe hub for females and personal development. So really expanding and growing that. And in this whole time, not only do I bring in my own experiences of life, but I've had mentors, I've hired coaches as well myself in the past year and a half, 2 years, and really just understanding how can I best serve people and have a reach. And I think, doing more talks, more public talks, getting my name out there, sharing the message, and really just expanding more globally. I would say that right now my client base is definitely predominantly Australian, but nearly 50-50 Australians and Americans. So for me, the goal would be to have clients all over the world and to get my name out all over the world and be known, and really be that key empowerment coach for women.
So you're basically gonna be like the Tony Robbins for the
Yes.
girls.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to do a event yourself, like host the event yourself, or you're happy just plodding along being a guest to other people's events?
I would definitely love to host my own events. And I think I hosted a kind of a mini fitness one, probably in the space of being in Bali and doing a visa run. It was like the third visa run that I did. I did a mini one for girls in Perth. And then when I went back to Bali, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to host more events in end of 2019, start of 2020, and then COVID hit. So then that kind of put that back, but that's always been in the back of my mind, is that I have a vision for, I guess, workshops more so than event, and facilitating, giving guidance in a bigger space, bigger crowd. And I think that will be one of the things, fingers crossed, that I'm able to hold and host probably towards the end of this year, start of next year.
You said that COVID's like, did COVID kick you out of Bali? Like, was it hard getting back to Australia when were you over in Bali at the time that COVID started?
Yeah, so I was over in Bali when COVID started. So COVID really started to get a name like November, and I didn't leave Bali until I think April. Yeah, so nearly a year. And for me, it was safer to be in a Western world.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, because I could have extended my visa, done an emergency visa and stayed in Bali, but that probably would have only lasted 4 or 5 months, and I would have had to come home anyway. And by that point, because COVID had gone so bad and the restrictions with Australia and the WA border, regardless of whether you're a citizen or a resident, it was very hard to come back on a flight. It was very hard to get a flight. So I thought, better at the start when there's a possibility. But in saying that, I had 3 flights cancelled before I was able to get home. And 2 of those first flights were cancelled like 24 hours before. But the third flight was actually cancelled as I got to the airport. And it wasn't until I had gone to check in that they were like, this flight's just been cancelled 5 minutes ago. And so the stress kind of set in, because I was like, am I ever going to be able to get home? And then you have this fear, like, am I going to be stuck here? And it wasn't bad. It wasn't, oh my God, I don't want to be in Bali, but it's more the fact that you feel so restricted about being able to get home at any point in time. But I eventually got home, and yeah, spent COVID back home in Perth.
What kind of spins me out about that is normally when you go to Bali, you book your accommodation for the week or the month or whatever, and then your accommodation's finished that day. You check out of your hotel or accommodation, and then you go to the airport to fly out. So, what's happening every time you're getting um, that flight cancelled? Are you having to go back to your accommodation and hopefully you can get back in there, or what happened with you?
So I was very fortunate for the last 6 weeks of me being in Bali. I was actually living in a villa with one of my friends, and she owned that villa.
Oh,
So
sweet.
I was very fortunate in that sense that I didn't have to rebook anything else and cancel my accommodation and things like that. It made it a whole lot easier.
Was the government offering you guys anything for kind of stuffing you around or not?
No, no. And I out of two flights, I'm just trying to remember, 2 out of 3 of those flights I still haven't been refunded for. Even though for Air Asia, that's what's going to happen. I've been refunded for one, and I literally got that refund end of last year, like a full nearly 10 months after.
How was Bali going before you left with the whole COVID thing? Was lots of people getting sick, or was lots of businesses closing down, or
Yeah, so near towards the end of where I was leaving, businesses were starting to close down. I guess it's really hard in a third world country because they don't really have the facilities or money to test like we do here in Australia, like they do in America and UK and stuff. So it's really hard to gauge of whether people had COVID, sick, etc. Where I was staying in Canggu, where all of us were staying, there was a curfew. I think the curfew was either 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. There were still cafes and stuff open, but we still had to social distance, wear mask everywhere we went, sanitize, all of that. So for me, like the whole mask thing, I know a lot of Australians have really struggled wherever you are in Australia if there's been a lockdown and to wear a mask. But I think because in the past month I was there, we had no choice. We had to wear a mask. So that was, kind of regular behavior for us. But I've had a few friends that stayed there the whole of COVID. They're still there. They just kept extending their emergency visa, and paying for that. And it's kind of gone up and down. Like, obviously, the economy there, they're not making money. So there's even more poverty. A lot more places have had to shut down. There's been a lot more, I guess, crime. The Indonesians are doing what they can to fend for themselves. But my friends that have stayed there, I actually asked them this the other month. I was like, are you happy that you made the choice to stay there? And they said yes. And they say just because they've had themselves together, so they weren't alone. They weren't just one Westerner there in Bali, but they see Bali as home because they'd been there a lot longer than I had. And most of them are actually Americans, so they didn't want to go back to America. But yeah, it's been fairly normal. They still have a curfew, 9 p.m. There's still a whole lot of places that are shut down, but where I was in Canggu, most of the cafes, beach clubs are now reopen.
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, here's a question for you. What are the main issues that you're finding that women are dealing with today that you try to help them with?
Yeah, the number one I definitely would say is the relationship that they have with themselves. And I think a lot of the time we try to look at external factors. What can we fix outside of ourselves? So how can we fix the relationships that we have with our partner or our friends? Or how can we fix this environment, or whatever it may be? But what we often, and what I see with my clients and women that I coach, in my membership is that we forget that everything starts from within. Everything that we are, every thought, every movement, behavior, motive, reaction, response is everything that is stored inside of us. And so one of the biggest things that I work with women is understanding who you really are, what you're really feeling inside. And a lot of the time you will make every excuse not to change the way you are because you want to blame someone else or an experience that you have, and you play into that victim mentality. And what women don't understand is that you need to look at, okay, what am I subconsciously holding on? What have I been subconsciously holding on for a long time? What have I repressed? Or what relationship have I not healed? And when I say relationship, I mean relationship with an ex, a relationship with a friend, relationship with social media, relationship when it comes to finances, relationship when it comes to career. So it's really, what are you looking to blame? What relationship in that sense are you looking to blame? And that is always a reflection of what's happening inside. So the main thing would definitely be relationship with self, and then definitely confidence with being who you are, who you want to be. And a lot of people think confidence can mean arrogance, or it can be cockiness, and it's not. Confidence is different to everyone, and confidence is all about how you feel about how you are navigating your life and how you can be your truest self. That's confidence. And my truest self is going to be different to your confidence and to your truest self. The way that I perceive being fulfilled and happy is going to be different to the next woman's. And that's one key modality, I guess, as we unlock, is what is that confidence to you. It's not comparing to someone on social media or your friends, or what your mum told you, or what your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend told you. It's, okay, well, this is how I would want to be if I was confident, and it's about getting them from A to B.
So you feel women still compare themselves a fair bit on social media? Like, is that a pretty negative thing when you get all these Instagram models and all this type of stuff popping up and stuff like that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a very prevalent issue, and I think it will continue to be a prevalent issue. I think it's looking at, how do we deal with that? How do we look at what's happening on our news feeds and know that, number one, a news feed is always curated. It doesn't matter how transparent or whatever raw someone is, there's always going to be an aspect that is hidden from social media. And that's fine. That's good, having a personal life. But I also think it's understanding that you can do things such as audit your news feeds. People forget, you can unfollow, you can mute, you can block if you need to. We play into this conditioned belief that we can't unfollow, or it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Like, I go through my personal Instagram and I do an audit of people that I'm following. And even if I'm going through the news feed, there'll be people I unfollow or I mute because I just don't need to consume their content anymore, or it doesn't resonate with me. And one thing that sticks out is, a few months ago, I was doing an audit, and I started to, as you clean up, people start to come back on your news feed because of the algorithm. And a lot of old fitness people I used to follow back from about 8 years ago started popping up again on my news feed. And I just unfollowed them, not because I was having insecurities, but I just didn't resonate with their message. I didn't resonate with what they were sharing with me. That wasn't a part of me right now. Not that gym and fitness isn't a part of me, but it's not my whole being right now. And so I think we're always going to have a problem where we compare ourselves. We're always going to have a problem where we look at someone else's curated news feed and we think, oh, they have such a better life than me, or they're so much better looking than me. But know that you have a choice of what you consume. You have a choice of who you are consuming and how often you go on your phone, how often you go through these news feeds. But we don't like to hear we have a choice because we like to outsource the blame.
Do you get trolls?
I would say yes, I do. For the most part, I will delete the message and block the person because that person doesn't need to consume my stuff. I also have people, when it comes to trolls, people are projecting their own fears, their own insecurities. They've read something or they've seen something and they think, okay, well, this is triggering me. I'm going to project my fear and my sadness and my anger onto you, and I'm going to hold you responsible for something I'm not going to work through. And, I've had people that have DM'd me or left a comment on my stuff and said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because you've never been through anything in life. People who don't know me. And I think I have such a backbone now that I don't let it get to me. I'll delete, I'll block, and I don't play into it. I'm always up for a discussion. I'm always up to have an understanding of someone else's perspective. I think that's so important. And I actually love hearing a perspective that is completely opposite to mine. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you or resonate with you, but it's interesting for me to understand, wow, okay, people see the world in that way. And I may completely disagree. But what I can't stand is when people project and they keep attacking you and they want it to the point where it's like, you need to agree with me. You need to change your opinion. And that's when I kind of take a stance and I just do not stand for it.
No, interesting. Yeah, I found that because do all the kids' books and the FIFO novel and stuff
Yeah.
like that. This is one interesting thing. I popped it up on like the buy sell pages, Manager Rockingham
Mm.
buy and sell pages. It actually looks like what people do for fun is they follow all these buy and sell pages and then they have like like chats with other people, like bagging out your product or
What?
I know it's fun me out too, but like majority 95% of the people like with a FIFA book when I chuck that up, they're like, oh yeah, looks good, looks like they were
Mm,
positive. Then you got some people that like this one lady was like, oh, it sounds shit, and the people had my back. Not that I
mm,
needed it,
yeah.
but they had, oh, well, have you even read it? Like, take a picture of you in your book and stuff like that. And they started like having my back, like defending me type thing. Whereas this
Mm,
person, and this other guy was like, oh, unless you've got 20 years mining experience and 20 different sites, you wouldn't know anything. It's like, mate, I've had 15 years mining experience and 5 different sites. The real question is why are you changing sites every year? You're obviously getting
yeah.
sacked away something, mate. And then he just wanted to keep going, keep going. And I wrote one more message and then I said, mate, I'm actually at work. I've got to go to sleep because I got to get up for day shift. Good luck with it. Good night. And then,
Yeah.
but then he got back on. I didn't respond because I already said bye. And this other guy was like, had my back like attacking him. It's like this
That's
big thing going
crazy.
on. Yeah, it's crazy
That's
as.
crazy. Yeah.
Where can people find? We're probably about 5 minutes left. Where can people find you online and find all your stuff?
Yeah, so I would say the best place to come connect with me is definitely my Instagram at Jess Pinelli, JESSPINILI. From there's everything you need to know of how you can work with me. I have so much free resources as well. Also, my website, jessicapinelli.com podcast, the Jessica Pinelli podcast. And yeah, I'm always down for a chat. So don't be afraid to come follow me, come have a chat, say you listen to this podcast, and we can, yeah, chat.
Cool. Any like words of wisdom or any sort of guidance or anything you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, definitely. I would say don't let fear consume you, and just know that there is always going to be a 50% chance of failure. And even if you fail, that's great because you learn what doesn't work and you can just go the other way.
That's pretty good words. Did you find that like strangers? I think you commented on like when you popped up. I'll let you answer this anyway, but I'm pretty sure you answered a little bit. Did you find that strangers support you more than what your friends and family were or are?
I think so. And I think that's always going to be the case. Not that my friends and family don't support me, but I think because I've changed into this whole new identity, um, that it's kind of because my most of my friends don't, have their own businesses or do what I do or understand what I do, which is completely fine, right? But I think it's really hard for people who are close to you to accept when you change into something and someone different and not choose a traditional path.
I totally agree. Cool. Yeah, might just leave it there. Thanks for coming on the show. Did you have fun?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Well, yeah, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank Jessica again for coming on the show, and I'd like to thank you, the listener, for listening. Please tell a friend about the podcast and have a fantastic day. And don't forget to check out Jessica's podcast as well. All right, cheers. Bye.